Are you searching for purpose of life? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
Hooray!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go!
Hands up! You lift your voice and melt my heart. You look in me, set me alight. You call my name and I am whole. You store in me unending hope. Take me deeper now. You're all I need. Tune out my lies. Your love is louder. Louder, louder. 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 Your love is louder. Tune the world out with just a breath, and with a shout, our walls collapse. You charged straight in and stole my heart. Now I'm complete in your love. Take me deeper now. You're all I need. Tune out my life. Your love is louder. Louder, louder. Your love is louder. Louder, louder. Your love is louder. Jump! Louder, louder. Your love is louder. Louder, louder. Your love is louder. Your heart, bigger than mine, wider than any love I find. I won't hide. I hear you now. Your love is louder. Your heart, greater than mine, wider than any love I find. Won't hide. I hear you now. Your love is louder. See the storms that come my way. You can't unground me. All this noise I cast away. Your love has found me. See the storms that come my way. You can't unground me. This noise I cast away. Your love has found me. Get up! Your love has found me. Your love has found me. Your love has found me. Let me see your hands up! Louder, louder. Your turn. Your love is
Jump, jump!
louder, louder. Your love is louder. Louder, louder. Your love is your heart, bigger than mine, wider. Your love is love I find. Won't hide. I hear you now. Shout it out.
Hi, my name's Beth, and I'm with the wonderful Renee Doyle here. She's about to give a little presentation at Ignite 2019 in Brisbane. Renee, what will you be talking about today?
Today I'm talking about everyday matters. So it's the value in every day to live the life that God has called us to live and to live it with passion and purpose, the best that we can. My name's Renee Doyle. I am a wife and a mother. I have 4 very, energetic children that keep me busy a lot. I also do some coaching, both strengths coaching, life coaching on the side as well. So this is kind of what I do. I get the privilege of talking about dreams very often in the life that I live. And it's something that I feel very passionate about. And it's something I feel passionate about because of a particular time in my life where that really wasn't the case. And I don't know if any of you here have ever experienced some kind of time when you feel a little bit of a disconnect, and you kind of feel like you're going through the day-to-day motions and you're going through the cycle and you're just kind of living and life is happening, but there's a part of you that feels like, is this really all that there is? Is this really all that, am I just existing? Surely, and it's like Father Dan talked about this morning, surely there's got to be more. Surely God didn't just drop us here and hope for the best to just exist. And I think I came to a time in my life where I knew God. This isn't that initial question of knowing that I was loved by Him, knowing that, to love and to be loved. But this was that next part of what was I created for? What unique ways he talked about this morning. We're all created with unique gifts and talents and the way that we see the world. And we get one shot to make the impact that we feel called to make. And I just felt like there was such a disconnect between maybe what I would call the blueprint of the life I was hoping to live and what I hoped that would look like and the dreams that were on my heart and the things that I felt passionate about and the life that I was living each and every day. Where sometimes we can just get caught up or the opposite. Life is just so busy just doing what we need to be doing that we forget about those very things, our values, our passions, our strengths, and we realize that we haven't really been living them, and it can lead us to that feeling of dissatisfaction and wanting more out of the day to day and not settling for just living for the highs or for the weekends, but knowing that every day holds some incredible purpose to it. Because you are alive, you are here, and you have the gifts and the calling that God has blessed you with every single day. Monday afternoon has just as much opportunity for you to live that purpose-driven life as does a Saturday night. And I guess you could say from that point in my life, I went on this, just found this real deep passion there and on this search to figure out, well, how do we close that gap between the dreams that are in our hearts, the vision that God's placed, and the things that I long to do or make an impact in, and my daily reality? How do we close that gap? Because I think that's where there can be a lack of alignment for whatever reason, because we get caught up in so many different things. And the beauty is when we get intentional, when we take a moment out like what you are doing today, even if it's just for this, for you to stop and think about, where am I at in my life? Am I where I want to be? Am I the person that I want to be? Because I think one of the greatest gifts that we have been given is if we are not on the track we want to be on, if we're not the person we want to be and we don't feel like we like where we're going with that, guess what? We get to change direction. And that's the beautiful gift of choice. And each choice that we make each and every day by day builds into the weeks, builds into the months, builds into the years, and eventually builds into the life that we long to create. And I believe that as we take that time out and really stop and ask God, what is that? And what are those things? And we work with Him. But I also believe that we need to get practical about it. Because some of these things, as much as we wish and hope, aren't just going to happen on their own. And it might take for us to get really intentional about that. And that's really what impacted my life, was that looking at life through intentionally living. I'm going to be deliberate about the way that I choose my day to day, because all we have is today. That's all we know. That's all we know, is that right now, today, this is what so we want to not miss this day, knowing, not to be morbid, but the truth is we never know when our last is. So all the more reason to put more effort, to be intentional, to live on purpose today, to start on those dreams, to start becoming the people that we want to be, to start fulfilling that vision that God has placed in our hearts. And the beautiful thing about that is, when we start living on purpose each and every day, when we're living aligned with those values, with those dreams and passions, it's like that's what God designed for us, because there's greater joy. There's greater life. And I think you've seen it. We set the world on fire, and we impact the people around us. And I think at some level, that's what we long to do. And we're all gifted with things inside of us to be able to do that. But we do need to be intentional, because sometimes we can forget that there is that mission in front of us each and every day. So I want to take you on a little bit of that journey to, well, that's great, and living intentionally, but I think getting into the details as well, is that there's some really practical things that we can do. Okay, so there's some dreaming things and some practical things, and I just want to go through and giving you 5 things to think about. And they all just happen to start with D, because that's just easy. And the first one is to dream. Now, this may sound basic. This may sound obvious. And it may even sound a little bit airy-fairy. But if you don't know what the dreams are in your heart, if you don't know the things that you're longing for, it's very hard for you to pull them out and start living them in the day-to-day. You might feel a sense of, I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing, or there's a deeper longing or a disconnect. So you need to take the time out to figure out what is going on in your heart. What's there? What brings you life? What excites you? When do you feel alive? Maybe what are the things that you feel passionate about? And I know through my coaching that sometimes this question can halt people, and it's like, I don't know what I'm passionate about. But then try a different question. What brings you life? What brings you joy? What are the things that if you were just set free, and you're like, if only I could just, move all the obstacles, this is where I think I would love to be, or to do, or who I would love to be. And daring to ask the what if questions, because you know what? Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's scary, or sometimes it's vulnerable to put it out there and to be honest with yourself about the things that you're really dreaming of inside, the things that are on your heart, because maybe somebody told you at some stage that would never happen for you. So you just shut down to dreaming about it. Some people love journaling, some people hate it. Maybe it's with another person. I have all different ways I love to do it. I love to be inspired. Sometimes it's through nature. But give yourself a space where you feel free to be creative, where you feel free to go to that daring place and really be vulnerable and see what's there. See what comes up if you really let yourself dream. So the second D is discover. We need to pay attention. You've had that time to dream. Pay attention to the things that really, again, bring you life. What is it? What have you got already? What are the things that, and sometimes we don't even take note. But I like to do this thing at the end of a day of like, if I've really enjoyed something, what was it about that? What was it about today that made it a really good day? Again, these are the kind of things that give you insight to shaping and being intentional about your day. If there's something that you kind of notice, hey, I've noticed that really brings me life. And I see it again, maybe you had a deep conversation, or maybe you helped someone do something that came really naturally to you, and there's like this teacher part in you that's just longing to come out and to be used every day. So we need to start to discover the things that are already in us. Too often we can just connect living with passion or living your passions as a job, rather than just looking for opportunities to live that out in the small ways every day. And I'm going to get to that a little bit more later. But just paying attention to what brings me life, or who are the people that I'm drawn to? Who are the people that inspire you? Because chances are the people that inspire you and who inspire me might be really different. And there's a reason for that. There's something in them that you are drawn to. And that often reveals a lot about ourselves and something that we love and are drawn to. So discovering these things. What makes us come alive? What are your gifts and talents? This is something I feel very passionately about because we have been given these by God. And again, it comes to that, no one will repeat you. No one, again, will ever walk this planet that has the exact gifts and the exact talents that you have, the way that you see the world, the things that pull on your heartstrings, the things that stir about a passion in you, the things maybe that make you angry and fired up that you need to do something about it. Nobody else is ever going to walk this planet again with the same things that you have. And that's what's going to make you unique in the way that you love the people around you and live your life unique. But the other thing I love about that, and I think it's kind of God's gift to us, is not only does it bless the people around us and change the world and impact the people, but we come alive. You know when you've had days when you're doing, you kind of feel like, I did what I was made to do today. There's like a natural high in that, like that was awesome. And the same can go for when you feel like you've just, when time ticks and you keep looking at the clock, and it's probably because you're doing something that's not in your natural talent way. Because there's some clues to talent here. I really recommend that you go on a bit of a journey and you kind of discover that, because they're not made to just discover, they're made to be used and to bring you life every day. This is from Don Clifton, who has done a lot of work in discovering human talent and potential. And these are just 5 quick, I can't go into any of these, I could talk all day about talents and strengths and using them, but this one, the clues to talent, is it's a yearning. What activities are you drawn to? Do you want to spend time on? It's kind of like, even if no one paid me, I'd sign up and be the first one there. Flow. And that was a little bit like you just get lost as time goes. You're so caught up in it that time just passes and you just naturally seem to know the steps to take. The glimpses of excellence. During what activities have you had moments of subconscious excellence when you thought, how did I do that? How do I know that? Or maybe people recognize it in you. People call it out in you. Rapid learning. You pick it up really quickly. And you want to learn more about it usually with that one too. And obviously satisfaction. Give you a life. And give you that zeal. And you feel more energy when you've come out of them. Maybe you've spent a lot of time doing them. Second thing to discover are your values. Now these are huge. And they are very different for each person as well. But whether you know it or not, you are making decisions every day. It's kind of like under the surface without even realizing it. These values are actually shaping the decisions and the choices you're making, the things you're saying yes to, the things you're saying no to. It's like you're on a ship and somebody's driving, and it pays to help you figure out who that person is that's driving, because they're our values. They're the very core of who we are. If you value gratitude. Let's take gratitude. If you value gratitude, but there's no room or practice of gratitude in your life, it's going to leave you feeling that little bit of disconnect. It's going to leave you feeling like, I'm not feeling that fullness, There's something missing. If you value family, and that's one of your core values, but you're never spending time with them. You're too busy to call. You're too, that your schedules may be so filled up that you don't have time to feed the values that are core to who you are, that bring you life and make you come alive. Well, then you're going to be feeling like, is this really, there's got to be more. That's a part of that. And so it pays to discover our values, the things that drive us. If you value leadership, but you're not leading, even in the smallest ways, or learning more about leading or growing, whatever it might be, if you're not living out of these, you're going to fill that void. So I want you to take time out to think, what are my values? And let me just talk you through this, because here's the difference now. Let's come back to the everyday, and I like to be very ordinary. Okay, because I'm not talking about the highs, and I'm talking about finding greater purpose just in the everyday. Okay, so let's pretend you are a uni student. Okay, so you get up in the morning, maybe you have a full day of uni, maybe then after uni you've got to go to work, and then after work you probably don't have much time, so maybe you watch Netflix or just hang out, and then you go to bed. Throw in some dinner and some lunch and meals in there, But if you just do that every day, and you feel like that's all there is, you're going to start to feel like, seriously, am I just going through the motions of life? I just get up and go to uni and go to work and come home and watching it. It's just the same kind of thing. But when you start to pour in, when you start to get in touch with these dreams and maybe visions that are in your heart, the values that you have, the talents and strengths that God has created you with, and you try and put them into your day, just even a little bit. Let's walk back through that same day. Maybe before you go to uni, you value fitness or health. So maybe you go for a run first. And then when you get there and you have some spare time beforehand, or maybe on your way in or whatever it might be, you value faith. You have your faith in God is important to you, and it sustains you. So you take time for prayer and to connect before your day starts. And then you go to uni and you do the things, but you know what? You also, really one of your talents is to encourage people. You're really good at just picking out the good in others and speaking into their potential and affirming them. So while you're at uni, although it's, pretty normal through the method, you are building the people up around you. And you can see that they're starting to feel alive. They respond even in the smallest ways. They smile, they appreciate that you've said something kind. As you start to connect in prayer and you give time for that each and every day, it's going to become stronger and more life-giving and more transformative in your life. So although it seems like just a little bit every day, in fact, that's all we ever have. So that little bit every day of pouring into these things, day after day, week after week, month after month, starts to create the life that you dream about. Brings me to my next one, which is D, develop. Once you start to figure it out, we have to develop it. Because all these things, it's great to know the dreams. I can feel really energized of praying and asking God, what do you want for me? And having these dreams on my heart. But unless they start to come alive, unless we start to action that, they don't get to have the power that they could have in our lives. They don't get to have the fruit that they could bear, the impact. We have to start to develop these things. Our talents or our gifts or the things that we want to do, to start to develop them, to use them. They're like muscles, If you don't use them, they don't keep growing. They don't get to do what they were meant to do. And part of this develop is to have this growth mindset. It's to believe that you have the potential, that you are capable of more. Because our thinking, it's really hard to talk about trying to live aligned with our dreams and values and the hopes that we have without talking about our thinking. Because our thinking can sabotage our dreams before we even start. They can start to put on those limiting things like, you will never be good enough. You don't have what it takes. That's reserved for a special kind of people. That's not for you. You know, and when we start to play these thoughts over and over in our head, they start to rob us of the very things that God has put in us because He believes in us. Because He has given us everything that we need, but our thinking. So part of it, again, I could spend all day talking about thinking, but part of it is just thinking about what you're thinking about. Paying attention to where your thoughts can be holding you back. You know, I have a very human story about this. When I was never a runner. My husband, if any of you know him, is a runner. He loves to run marathons. I never ran at all. I always thought running was reserved for a special kind of people who were born runners and loved to do that, and that was just their thing. It was certainly never something that I felt like I could do. But he kept encouraging me, and it was something I just wanted to try. So I started to run very little bit. I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes a day, and just kind of tried to create a bit of a habit around that and do it more and more. And it was very difficult, but I just pushed through. And I remember then he challenged me to run a half marathon. Now for me, going from never running ever to a half marathon felt absolutely ridiculous, and such a huge gap. But as I did the little bit every day and a little bit every day and just run my, put it in my schedule, as human and boring as that sounds, it started to transform me. And here's why. I had thought that running, as I said, was not for me, was for a special group of people, and that it was never within my reach. That it was never something I could do. And I remember the day that I ran 10 kilometers. It wasn't about running 10 kilometers or crossing the finish line of a half marathon. It wasn't about the running. The lesson that I got from that was I became someone I didn't think that I could be. Through these very little steps I took each and every day, very humble little steps, I started to become more of a person that I wanted to be, that I hoped I could be, but I actually believed I could never be. And I say that because I think we all put limits on ourselves of I could never be that, I am not qualified, I don't have what it takes. But actually, what if God says you do? What if we are putting limits on ourselves that's only because of us? And the road to get there is just that little bit every day. That seems insignificant, but as we build on that, we start to grow and to fulfill our potential. And for me, that's living beyond who we thought we could be. It can be so practical that it can be, as I say before, it's boring. It's like, well, I want to talk about dreams. I want to talk about on Monday afternoon at 4 p.m. with my friend, I am going to do X, or XYZ, whatever it is. Or if I want to become a more encouraging person, then I'm going to pick 3 people today that as I go through my day, I am just going to encourage them. It's going to be genuine, but because that's who I want to be, and I'm trying to grow into that, I'm going to be intentional, and I'm going to make sure that as crazy as today gets, I'm going to find those moments. That's the gift that a day offers us. We get to decide what goes into each day. The really cool thing about this is that our brain helps us do this. Our brain is kind of, it can't, if we don't give it a timeline, this is where goals, setting habits, this is where it's powerful stuff. And this is the really human part of helping ourselves to do what we feel called to do. To set baby goals. Maybe it's, as I said before, it's just the tiny little things that add up. Maybe you want to write a book, but you don't have time to write more than 100 pages. 100 words in a day. But you do that consistently. Over the days and the months, it will build. But we need to be intentional about what we design. You know, because when we come, as I was saying before, our brain can't deal with the lofty concepts of, I want to be better with my family. You know, I want to have a better relationship with my family. But if you say, I want to call my grandmother at 4 p.m. on Friday, kind of giving your brain a cue that on Friday, even if it doesn't remember, you know that feeling of like, something I was meant to be doing. Something I was meant to be doing. And that's what our brain can do when we've been intentional and said, at this time, I want to. So I dare you to get so detailed, if you can, about some of the things that you want to see changing in your life. Gratitude. This is something that I had worked on recently. And I can't tell you how much joy and how much it has opened my life. And I kind of had written it off and almost rebelled subconsciously because it's just one of those, gratitude journals. It's just one of the things that people do. But I just felt really actually compelled by God to start being grateful for the things that He had given me. More grateful. And as I started to do it each and every day, it's almost addictive. You can't help but see it more and more. It's like, whoa, there is so much that I'm grateful for. And you want to talk about finding more meaning and more purpose in every day? Gratitude is going to be one of the key things to get you there because we have so much. And sometimes the longing for more, I want to be here and I want to be there and I'm not where I want to, can rob us of enjoying the journey. That's the kind of thing that's like, I don't want to be here today. I wish it was Saturday, or I wish it was something other. 2 weeks from now, I'm going on this holiday. I'm just passing time. Let's not pass time. Let's pay attention to the things, the dreams, and the call that is on our hearts and live each day as much as it matters and pouring in it all of who you are because, again, the world only gets one of you. And the fifth one is to do it. Take the leap. I know that can sound, again, similar to dreaming. It can seem so, well, of course you have to do it, but not of course. Because do you know how many people have dreams that they've never even taken the first step towards them? This part here, I purposely picked this picture because it's scary. Because at some point in following these calls on our life, in daring to dream bigger, to hope for more, to believe in more, for yourself, for others, for the impact you want to make, whatever it is, for the call you feel that God has on your heart, it's going to take that leap of faith. It's going to take believing in yourself and believing that God is with you. It's going to take facing your fears. And I say it will take facing your fears because you can be assured when you choose to step out and to live intentionally, to live with purpose, to dare to find that meaning in the everyday, that obstacles will be there. And they will try and hold you back. So I just want to name some of these just to be aware of it. First is exactly that, not taking analysis paralysis. Well, let me just think about it a bit more. Let me just perfect it a bit more. If I just get a bit more information, if I just get a bit, that's fine if you need more information and more things to do. But do it whilst you're taking steps. Even if they're just bite-sized chunks. Break it down as small as it needs to go so that at least you're moving. Because there's something about moving, there's something about growth. We know it about anything that's growing, it's alive. And isn't that what we want to feel? Isn't that what we want to feel in the day-to-day? Because there's a part of us that knows that we weren't just created to exist. We weren't just created to live a mediocre, hope you get by, just survive kind of life. And it's that part in all of us that goes, I don't want that. I want more. Jesus says, I have come that you may have not just life, but have it unto the full. And I think it's that part in our hearts that longs for more every day because we know we're not made just to exist. We know that we're made for more than that. But we have to take the journey and step out and face the fears, the fear of failure, the fear of what other people will think, the fear that we're not enough, that we don't have what it takes, that we're not qualified. I mean, there are as many fears as there are people. But I think that's why we're charged so many times in Scripture. Do not be afraid. Yeah. Do not be afraid. And I think along with that is it's okay if we feel afraid, but let's not let that fear stop us and hold us back. I think sometimes as well, the need to find your purpose. I believe in that. I am someone who's very passionate about purpose and finding that thing that God has put us on the earth and has given us gifts and able to do. And I believe, like what Father Dan was talking about, we have a very unique way of loving the people in the world around us. But sometimes just finding your purpose, people kind of panic and go, I don't know what my purpose is. That's okay. Do what's right in front of you. Do the things that are bringing you life today and keep following that gut that leads you to the next. Because sometimes we can't know it all now, and actually it's doing really well what you've got in front of you and giving your best to it and following the things that bring you life that will lead you to the next. That will lead you to the next, and trusting in God to lead those steps. And it's often only in hindsight you see a thread and go, hold on, there's a thread through all this stuff. That's my purpose. So I truly believe that when you do this, when you dream, discover, develop, design, and do it, and it's going to be in all different orders and it's going to be continuously repeating, you will see great things happen. You will experience that more alignment. You will close that gap between the life that you long to live, the person that you long to be, and the life that you're living in the day-to-day. And that'll just not change the circumstances, but infuse the circumstances with purpose and with life and with that more. Because you know at a deeper level why it is you do what you do. And sometimes it will lead us to changing circumstances. That's incredible. But even when it can't, there can be more life found in the everyday. I had a bit of a sobering experience just last week. In my university course that I was doing for the weekend, they took me to a funeral parlor. And you had to picture yourself. It was very confronting exercise. But you had to kind of picture yourself at the end of life, imagining that it was you there. What did you want people to say about you? They asked. What kind of life do you hope that you lived? And if you were free, if you actually believed that God was with you, that you had the hope that you could do anything, that fear couldn't hold you back, they asked us to write about the kind of life that we would live. And I think there's something very profound in that. To start at the end and to think back to that kind of unlocks something at the of the treasure of who you are and what you long to do. And as we get more in touch with that, the more we can take parts of it and put it into our everyday schedule. I should see reflections in your schedule of who you want to be and the life you want to live, because all we have is today. All we can build on is today. So my passion is to see people living the dreams that God has placed on their heart. My passion is to see people fulfilling their incredible God-given potential. And so my hope and my prayer for you is that is what you can do. Is that as you start to live and move in these things, that God will lead you to living the life that you dream of, to living each and every day with more passion and with more purpose in the day-to-day. Amen.
Marion, what did you think of Renee's talk?
I thought it was great. I think she talks about living for more, and I think that is really the core of the heart of every person, and I think it resonates with me. Like, why am I doing here in Brisbane? Like, it's really to live the more and to discover the more for me. Yeah.
That's cool. All right, so we've got Michaela here. She was also at the keynote with Renee. So what were your impressions, Michaela?
Oh, look, it's not the first time I've heard Renee speak, but I always go away from it just feeling so challenged and wanting to get out and just do my life differently, you know, especially with like when she was talking about the power of the mind and how we actually do have control over the way that we think and the way that we live out our life. And that just makes me want to do my life differently, you know, and to face the challenges in my life differently than the way that I've been doing it already.
Yeah, I think we're all a bit shook after it, so it was great. We've got lots to think about. Thanks so much, Michaela.
He sees you on your knees, trembling. The virgin will conceive and bear a son. Hope of the precious child, the Son of God, the Son of God, the Lord Most High, King forever. As one voice, let's sing it out, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, here with us. Emmanuel, Christ in us. Emmanuel, God is with us. True God, true man, flesh divine. Savior of the world, His works are glorious. God is with us. Amen. God is with us.
Greetings from Brisbane, Australia, which is very far from where most of you are. In Jesus Christ, what we hear, what we discover, is the good news. Here we find in Jesus Christ, crucified and risen, good news for everybody. And that's why Shalom Media really does have a contribution to make. Shalom Media is seeking to communicate to families and to show to the world the truth and the beauty of what the family is within the plan of God. May the blessing of God really come to you through all that is offered in Shalom World by Shalom Media. The word Shalom itself comes from Hebrew, as you know, and it means peace. May the blessing of God's peace, the Shalom of God, for which we were created, may it come to you from the God who is peace, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.